Live in Western Oregon, this is NBC 16 News at 5:30.
Welcome back. A judge in Eastern Oregon declared Governor Kate Brown's state restrictions null and void. And within hours, the governor appealed to the state Supreme Court. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Jacqueline Mazer. Now, this all started when nearly a dozen churches sued the governor, saying social distancing rules were unconstitutional and infringed on religious liberties. They also argued the governor's emergency powers should have ended after the 28-day limit or gone in front of the legislature for approval. Baker County Circuit Judge Matthew Shirtcliffe agreed, ruling the distancing directives unconstitutional. As we mentioned, Governor Brown appealed to the Oregon Supreme Court. Meanwhile, the judge has declined to stay the order while awaiting that decision. Executives with OHSU argue with the measures in place now, the economy and communities will actually be able to reopen faster.
There's never been an issue of open or closed, yes or no. It's really been about how we slowly start to reinstitute some of the kinds of normal things that we've done in our life and to begin to evaluate each of that at every step.
The governor's appeal has been filed, but there's no timetable yet on when it will be taken up. The state Supreme Court will have to decide whether her executive order is constitutional. Well, this week, we expect to find out if Marion and Polk counties will get approved for Phase 1. Governor Brown denied the counties last week. The Oregon Health Authority cited an increase in coronavirus cases and hospitalizations earlier this month as the reason. The state requires a 2-week decrease for approval to move on to Phase 1. Governor Brown will review their proposals again on Wednesday. Now, to recap, all the counties you see in yellow on your screen are the 31 Oregon counties Governor Brown approved to start Phase 1. In our region, that includes Lane, Douglas, Coos, Deschutes, Benton, and Lynn. All the counties in gray have not been approved for Phase 1 yet. Multnomah, Washington, and Clackamas counties have not applied for Phase 1 of reopening yet. Those counties are still battling a large number of coronavirus cases. The Oregon Health Authority has announced that the experimental drug remdesivir will be used on Oregon coronavirus patients. The drug will be used to treat any patients with severe cases. NBC 16's Angelina Dixon found out how many patients it can cover and how many are hospitalized right now.
Remdesivir is not a vaccine, but rather a treatment to help speed up the recovery for patients in the hospital. That's according to the Oregon Health Authority. It arrived in Oregon this past week with enough vials to treat 80 patients. Currently, there are 56 patients in the hospital with COVID-19 throughout Oregon in the hospital, 25 of which are being treated in the ICU.
The new drug has not been formally approved by the FDA, but it is being used under a federally issued emergency use authorization. It was developed by Gilead Sciences Incorporated and has been tested in patients who had Ebola, MERS, and SARS. But for COVID-19, it's not known if remdesivir is safe and effective for treatment. The Oregon Health Authority reports that preliminary results released in April of 2020 showed that people with advanced lung disease who received the drug recovered 31% faster than those who did not throughout the country. The study consisted of over 1,000 patients. As for its use, the treatment is an injection received within a 10-day course. Because the drug is still within the experimental phase, decision-making between patients and their doctor is important before the injection. Here in Oregon, the drug will be distributed to hospitals immediately upon notification of an eligible patient under the specified terms of emergency use authorization. In Eugene, I'm Angelina Dixon reporting.
Let's turn to coronavirus numbers statewide now. Oregon has surpassed the 3,600 mark of coronavirus cases and 138 deaths. Most cases are up north in Multnomah, Washington, and Marion counties. Lane County Public Health announced 5 more cases, bringing the total to 66 positive cases, including 1 presumptive case. These new 5 cases are from the Eugene-Springfield area. The patients are medically stable at home. The new cases include 2 people in their 30s. 1 case is a household transmission, and the other is linked to an existing case. 2 other people in their 50s tested positive, and both have a known link to an existing case. A man in his 60s was identified through proactive point-of-care testing. If we take a deeper look at our region now, Benton County added 3 cases and has 54 cases. Lynn County has the most in our region with 109 cases. Again, in Lane County, we have a total of 66 cases. Deschutes County is also high up there with 101 cases after adding 5 more. The total number of cases in Douglas County remains at 25. 23 people recovered there. Coos County has 30 cases. No one has recovered there yet. School districts here in Oregon are anxiously awaiting the budget forecast set to be released on Wednesday. That's when they'll see what kind of impact the pandemic has had on the economy. On the South Coast, the Coos Bay School District Superintendent says over the last few years, they've built in a contingency fund to be used if a shortfall like this were to happen. Superintendent Brian Trindle says it's not something that will fill the sizable gap they're anticipating, but they're weighing options.
We're in I wouldn't say great shape, but our district is in better shape than we've been in the past as far as having a little bit of reserves and contingency for some sort of a shortfall. We just don't know how big that shortfall is going to be.
Trendle says the school district's budget primarily consists of staffing, which could lead to some staff cutbacks or cutting back school calendar days. One thing he's unsure of is whether this budget gap will be a one-year blip on the radar or carry into a couple years or more. The Student Success Act will be affected by the budget. Trindle says that funding is made up of a corporate activity tax.
Some districts had kind of gotten ahead of the curve and started to hire people or purchase things with that money in mind, and you know, it's unfortunate because you know, that might not come to fruition.
He says the Coos Bay School District has held off from using any proposed Student Success Act money and will wait until they have the money in hand. Based off the recession of 2008, he says it took a while to recover from the shortfalls, but Trindle is hopeful that once everything is up and running, they will recover quickly. Lebanon Community Schools will be moving to a 3-day schedule Monday through Wednesday for the remainder of the academic school year. Superintendent Bo Yates says current distance learning days will be traded for traditional school days in the fall. Yates says this is considered a partial furlough with a reduced number of school hours. Yates says this move will allow the district to save funds from this year's budget and apply them to next year's budget. Illegal timber trading costs the U.S. up to $1 billion every year. Timber communities take the biggest blow, including those in Oregon. Experts say the counterfeit wood is sold at a lower cost, causing timber prices to go down. In an effort to fight back, Oregon State University now has a wood crime-fighting forensics lab. The hope is to expand work with law enforcement and other agencies while teaching the next generation of scientists.
We just need a sliver of wood about the size of a toothpick to identify the genus and species of that product if we have that species in the database. So a big part of the effort that we're going to continue is building up the database.
The lab is still being renovated. It comes to Corvallis from Ashland and was made possible through a $4 million 5-year grant from the United States Forest Service. LeBeau says it will be up and running as soon as it's safe to do so. Lane County campgrounds will reopen for modified camping this Thursday, May 21st. Those parks include Armitage Park Campground in Eugene, Richardson Park Campground in Fern Ridge Reservoir, Baker Bay Park Campground in Durana, Harbor Vista Campground in Florence, and Archie Knowles Campground in Mapleton. Safety measures will be taken to keep campers safe. Restrooms will be serviced on a posted schedule using approved cleaners and disinfectants. Soap or hand sanitizer will be available in the flush restrooms. Campers will not be able to join other families in the same campsite. Signs will be posted throughout each campground reminding people to maintain proper distance and hygiene. Changes will be made if campers do not follow rules or venture into areas that remain closed. On the coast, the Bureau of Land Management is beginning to restore access to recreation sites. In the Coos Bay District, as of today, Batstendorf Beach is fully accessible. The beach was not shut down, but access was limited. According to the BLM Coos Bay District, visitors should be aware sanitation services and restrooms will remain closed. They are asking people not to overcrowd the beach.
Part of why we tried to reopen at the same time as the state parks on Cape Arago is to allow people to space out if necessary. So if it's crowded in one place, maybe move on down the road and try one of the other spots.
With the Memorial Day weekend coming up and dispersed camping on BLM land open, Harper says you should be prepared for limited services and be sure everything is cleaned up when you leave. The North Spit Boat Ramp, Deck Creek Elk Viewing Area, and all campgrounds will remain closed until Phase 2 of the BLM's plan, which is different from the county's plan. Now, just a reminder, you now have a little more than 24 hours left to turn in your ballot to make sure it's counted in Oregon's primary. At this point, it's too late to mail in your ballot. You will have to drop it off. Lane County election employees will be collecting those ballots until 8 p.m. Tuesday night.